Alright guys, I've wanted to talk about this for a while, but I've finally come up with how I think this could work. Something that I wanted since they've introduced swords into Destiny was for the Sword of Crota to be an exotic. And I know what you're thinking, that would be extremely OP, year 2 Galahorn, you know, whatever it is you're thinking about that right now. But hear me out. There's ways that they could do this without it being insanely OP. First of all, the actual slam that you can do with the Sword of Crota, the non-super slam, Razelighter actually does with Warrior of Light more damage than the Sword of Crota. So that right there is just out of the question for that. Because if you put on Warrior of Light, it actually does more damage than a Sword of Crota hit. And they can make it so when you do the slam, it takes 5 shots, just like a exotic special. And for the super, because that's really OP part of the Sword of Crota, what they could do is actually make that its special ability, instead of it having a swing and then the slam, or take off guard, or block, whatever you want to call it, and replace it with the super, because most people don't block with a sword anyways. I do, but a lot of other people don't. And then replace it with the super and make the super take 25 or 30 shots. If you ask me, that's pretty reasonable for the amount of damage it does. Just have it not have guard, and then have it have the super that the regular Sword of Crota has. And of course, make it so it doesn't have infinite ammo. Just like every other exotic has 68. And then if they put Scabbard on it, have it have 81. And then for the first column, just like every other exotic, make it have a special perk of some sort there. I haven't really thought of what a good perk for that would be. But, I mean, there's ways they could do it, they just haven't done it. And technically, we kind of have Oryx's sword because we took the shard from it, and that's how we get our exotic swords. But if you ask me, it's just not the same. I want the Sword of Crota. I've wanted one since Crota came out back in December of 2014. But they finally introduced swords, which opened up that whole doorway for them to be able to do that. And they haven't done it. Seems like a waste if you ask me. And they gave us a Dreadfang, which was cool, I'll admit that. But it doesn't turn into an exotic, and I like the lore behind it, I like the origin of it and the way it looks. But there's really no point to use it over any other sword. If they would have made it an exotic, that would have been cool, but once again, another wasted opportunity. But I just think that would be totally cool to have that as a sword, since we took Oryx's shard. I just don't get why we can't have Crota's. And it wouldn't even be OP if they did it right. But, you know, considering we've had Galahorn, Icebreaker that could cheese everything in the game, they probably not do it right, but I have hope that they could do it properly. Actually, maybe make the super take like, I don't know, 30 or 35. I don't know, I think 25 would be kinda low, but 35 seems pretty reasonable, I'd say. I don't know if it should have a swing though, because technically we can't swing his sword. Like when you use it in game, you cannot actually swing his sword, you just get slam and super. I'm not really sure if having a swing on it would be a good idea. It'd kind of take away from the feel of the original Sword of Crota. Now, one thing that I did think about with this is the fact that it would kind of mess up like Crota's End and the Sword of Crota mission, because you would technically have his sword, so there would be no reason to pick up the one they give you. I'm not really sure how they would do that, but you know, I'm sure they could figure out a way to make it so that it's not OP like that. If they worked around what they've done, they could make that work. And I think a lot of people would agree having that instead of just the 3 exotic swords that we have right now would actually be really cool. And then turn Dreadfang into an exotic. I just think they have a lot going for them with the swords, and they could open up more categories with them. And even other races like Vex have had swords, so we could stray away from Hive and have like Vex swords. And I also, something else is, now other people have said this, but since we're on the topic of swords, I'm going to say it anyways. I think the factions should have their own legendary swords, not exotics, but just legendary swords with like the faction emblems on them or the color scheme, something to do with the faction, and they should have their own swords. Because then if somebody wants to represent their faction, they can just do that. Put on the sword, put on the emblem, put on the shader, put on the class armor, full set of armor. Whatever they want to do, they could represent it. There's no way to get the Sword of Crota on Death Singer, but there's no way that one little slam from the Sword of Crota would have done what the Raise Later just did to her. No way. It might have done about half of that, but it wouldn't have actually done that. No, I didn't actually mean to do that. I mean, I've never really tried this, but just as an example of how the swords are currently, I'm going to try and do it and see if I can do it. I'm going to go up on Crota and down him with the Raise Lighter. I've done it with Dark Drinker, so I know you can do it with Raise Later. It's just the fact that I've never actually tried it. If the Sword Bearer comes out. See, look at that. Slam does not do as much as a Warrior of Light. I'm not like comparing numbers right now, but I'm pretty sure if you check the numbers, they're not the same. Got him with my hammer first. Oh, that's not good. Ah, there goes that sword. I didn't get to down it with my Raise Lighter because I did it with my Hammer of Soul first. Oh, the heavy. If that had wound rings on, that's at least like 150 energy for the sword just right there. And something else is does anybody miss like where in House of Wolves everything you did was important? You had trials, Vaulted Glass, Crota's Inn, Prison Elders. People had choices what they wanted to do. And Bungie's new thing that they say all the time is we want players to feel like they have options. But they make it so that they just, you can't do the old raids anymore. If they brought back Vault and Crota would be an easy source of gear, so I can kind of understand that, but I still think it should be brought forward. But most people would choose VOG over King's Fall. I play both because I like both raids a lot, but I can tell you a lot of people would choose VOG. They're worried about the elemental primaries, just take the elements off of them, and then there's that. And then leave the Found Verdict, Praetus, Revenge, you know, everything else, just leave them the way they are. And then people would have different sets of armor. They could just customize what they do instead of just having to have faction or King's Fall armor. They could have VOG, Crota. I think they should bring back some of the other stuff from like Challenge Elders. I'm actually not going to attack him right now because I actually went down him with the sword. But you can block his sword swing like so. Okay, guess you can't block two of them. I went to uppercut him and he just destroyed me. Too bad we can't have the Sword of Crota actually the size that he has. I gotta practice that. I think that would be way more fun than doing anything else, would be to down him with your own sword. I'm gonna do a test for numbers just so I can like see the difference between Wayslater with Warrior of Light and the Sword of Crota. Okay, so I did it to a thrall, so uppercut. Yeah, 6,300 and 2,000. I'm pretty sure Sword of Crota Slam only did 6,000. Let's check. 6,800. So basically, Wayslater's still doing about 1,500 more damage than a Sword of Crota Slam. Which is basically the difference between Dark Drinker and Wayslater. That's basically the damage difference that you're comparing. There we go. I downed it with the Wayslater that time. If I would have had enough ammo, I would have done it again and killed him, but I didn't heavy sync. Oh wow, I couldn't have even if I wanted to. I just think Bungie's wasting a lot of opportunities that they could do with stuff. Such as the Dread Fang, the Sword of Crota, leaving the old raids behind. Seems like a bunch of wasted stuff. And then the other thing is this is going to be a different video, but I'm going to bring it up right here. The lore in Destiny, at least in my opinion, is amazing. Like, the actual story of Destiny is great. But a lot of people don't actually know the story of the game because Bungie put it in Grimoire cards. If they could have actually like explained it or at least put the cards in game for people to read, this game would not get basically any flack on the story because it actually has an amazing story. Another overlooked thing that Bungie has done. Really? You got no health, Crota. No health. If I would have went for free slams, I probably would have killed him, but I wanted to do the combo. Comment down below if you think that they should do, well, for one, if they should do anything with the Dread Fang. I'm pretty sure I know what most people are going to say, but I want to hear the opinions of people on what they think they should do with that. I forgot ogres were even coming out. But if you watch this, I just mauled that ogre and took more than 3/4 of its health with one uppercut. That's way more than the Sword of Crota would have done. So you can't use that as an excuse for why they haven't done it. It wouldn't even be that OP. Just tone down the super, make it have 68 rounds without the second scabbard, and that's it. And they'd have to change that too, where you can just infinitely fly with it, because you can't do that with the swords that we get. Oh yeah, my bad. Didn't have any sword ammo. Slamming, slamming. Oh, there. See, right there, when he disintegrated, we should have gotten his sword. Make it happen, Bungie. Exotic Sword of Crota. Dark Drinker to me is the closest thing you can get to the Sword of Crota because it does less damage than Raise Lighter, but also has an AoE effect. It's basically about the same radius as a Sword of Crota Slam, I'd say. Just, you don't have the super and it doesn't look like it, but other than that, it's basically the same. So let me know what you think about the Sword of Crota being an exotic down in the comments below. I'm going to be making more video discussions about other things such as, like I said, the Grimoire, other weapons. They're not bringing the raids forward and what I think they missed out on when they did that. And just a bunch of other topic discussion videos. See you guys in the next video.